I think it's been intriguing what's going on, even though, wins are always intriguing, but just the presence of Torts, I think, makes everything very different, but in a good way.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you've been communicating with him quite a bit. I know you had a podcast with him yesterday, the day before. I mean, what's your relationship like with him, and like, what are you seeing from your perspective of how he's influenced the team so far?
Well, it's weird because when you kind of think the same way as somebody, your assumption is the relationship is good. I don't know how he'd answer the question. He'd probably say, I don't know. I don't have a relationship with him. He's a guy that I talk to once in a while. But
right.
I love the way his approach, just even before he was here, I always thought that it made sense for him to be here. And then you couple that with the timing that he is here, because I think everybody needs a big mirror held in front of them right now. And we know that's what Torts does. And sometimes you won't like the reflection, and that's important. We talk to him before every game. The meetings we have with a head coach before the game, and they're very off the cuff, and some of the stuff is just context for us. Some of it is stuff we can use on the air, and some of it certainly is neither. So we have really frank discussions about players, about different elements of the game and what they're trying to do on and off the ice. And I just think that, the honesty that he comes with every day, and the accountability, for him, that's not like a catchphrase. For us, that is.
Yeah.
Well, I got to be accountable. That's easy to say, hard to live.
Right.
And I think he forces guys to live it, as best he can. And it's not easy forcing that with today's athlete. So I've really enjoyed covering him. I think he's a genuine guy. He's a dog lover.
Yeah.
All those things. Like, he's a real dude.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy covering him. I've covered some good guys. I mean, Lavi, we had a blast with Lavi. Similarities, but some differences too. I felt like Lavi was a little bit more serious all the time. With Torts, when kind of he's in off mode, he's a real laid back, like, moves slow, chill guy. So I really enjoy kind of being around him, and theoretically the way he talks about the game, I agree with.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And I was just gonna say, like, Nasty and I have talked about this a bunch. Like, when they signed Torts, like, we thought it was a good fit, obviously from his past and all that. How do you see? I mean, the Flyers started off well, probably won some games they shouldn't have, probably because of Carter Hart. But how do you see this thing sustaining itself? Over the course of the rest of the season here, with Torts behind the bench and knowing how he is, especially when things get a little rocky. Do you see him being able to, maintain his composure? And
yeah, I think that's been a big question. You see it a lot on social media, especially through the 10-game winless skid.
Yeah.
Going, this isn't what Torts thought he was getting into. He's going to walk. Then where are we? And so I think that's baloney, because I think he knew exactly what he was walking
Sure,
into.
he did. Yes.
Yeah, he did.
And I talked to him on the pod yesterday, and one of the things he loves teaching. And he's done more of that this year than ever before, shown more video, more teaching. He's called the league young and dumb, and to some extent he's right, because the middle class is kind of gone right now. Right. I think it'll come back, but as far as him not getting something that he didn't expect, I think that's baloney.
Yeah.
And I think he understands. You look at his history. I think there was this notion that he was going to come in here and take a team that was well below average and have it fighting for a wild card spot.
Yeah.
That never happens where he goes in year one. In year one, he goes and weeds out. And none of his teams have ever knocked on the door of a wild card in year one. It's about finding out who's part of the solution, who's part of the problem, who's part of the problem that we have to get out of here immediately, and how do we replace him. And then we have this arc that we go on of he makes the playoffs in full year two of a full season and arcs towards however high up he can get. In Tampa, that was a cup.
Yep.
It took 4 years. And he was there for 6. In New York, that was a conference final. And in Columbus, got to a couple of second rounds. So where that arc goes remains to be seen, but he defies the logic of, kind of the way people think about it. Everybody thinks he's a tyrant and he's going to he burns hot and he's going to burn out quick. But the average tenure of an NHL coach is 2.4 years. His average tenure, if you take out Vancouver, is over 5 years.
Right. Yeah.
So that's he's a bit of an anomaly in that way.
Right. Yeah, I mean, he's had a good track record, and I think he's softened a little bit over time. I mean, maybe it's not the right word, but I mean,
Evolved.
I think he's
Yeah,
I think
right.
he's
Evolved.
learned.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we had Jay Rosehill on last week, and he was under Torts only for some camps, but he said he's amazed at how he has evolved with, as Rosie put it, it's a little softer now than it used to be. The game's obviously different from when he had him in Tampa. That was years and years ago, but I think that's a perfect word. He's evolved, and even Michael Delzato told us that.
Yeah.
When we had him on, he goes, he's a lot different than when I had him in New York when I was a kid. He's a lot calmer. He still gets on you.
More tactical, I
Yes,
think.
he gets on you when he should, and coaches should be able to do that anyway. That's what makes me laugh sometimes.
But, that's the funny thing. Like, when they hired him, and I know that Dubinsky put out, like, pray for the Flyers players. And a lot of people had that same mentality, like, oh, shit, you got to deal with this guy, right? And, players, elite athletes, you guys have been around them enough. Riles, you were one. Like, they're not used to being pushed.
Yeah.
How do you get there without being
right,
pushed?
I know.
Like,
Seems so odd.
Yeah, they're like, this is foreign. Like, how are you going to push an elite athlete? Well, how do you think he became an elite athlete? You don't come out of the womb and just be able to, go up and down the ice.
Right.
I got news for you. Connor McDavid had to push to get to where he is, and Ovi and the great players, and they all do. So pushing a guy to uncomfortable levels, I think for some guys is welcomed.
Right.
And
100%.
Yeah,
sure.
you want that.
You want that.
Yeah. You should want that.
Yeah, you should want that. That's how you
Yeah,
maximize your team.
And if you don't want that, I don't want you.
Yeah, well, that's it, right?
And I think that's what he's
Bingo.
figuring out right now with the team.
Yeah, and I think too, like a lot of Torts' track record, what it appears to the general public, is based on his media blurbs, right? So like that's all they see. They don't see him behind closed doors and having communication with their players. And you have other coaches, I know, like John Stevens, for example, even Hack. They get knocked on for not being overly dramatic on the bench, showing emotion, all this stuff. But you don't think all these coaches push their players as well, just in different ways? I mean, that's what coaches do. But I think
Hack was as serious as a heart attack. When it was time.
Yeah,
Right.
no doubt.
He wasn't going to be going crazy on the bench because his way of doing things was, hey, if the leader is out of control, then how do the people that I'm leading?
That's exactly
how they
it.
react.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and some guys like Torts, he'll MF you up and down the bench if you don't do something right. But it's
Lavi
just
would
different.
too.
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
like
he
Lavi
would.
would too.
Yeah.
You know that. You were down there.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just you got to be who you are. You can't be
right.
fake, right?
That's
Right.
it.
I mean, if you have a coach that's trying to message you and it's all bullshit and fake, and you're like, am I allowed to curse?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, good. Because I'm going to. But like, if they're not being authentic to who they are,
Yeah.
as a person, you see that and you're like, this dude's phony.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
He's trying to be who we liked watching or something.
I
Yep.
used to have friends like, around when Hack was here, and they would be like, oh, like he's too stoic on the bench. I'm like, wait, do you go underneath and get into the locker room? Do you know what he does? Like, you have no idea. Like, if he, like you just said, if he's out of control on the bench and he's your leader, there's a funny story about G where Hack, we were waiting on a review for the refs, and he's got everybody over at the bench. He goes, listen, whichever way it goes, let's just keep going. We're playing well. Stay with it. And the guys are real quiet, and G goes, if it doesn't go our way, I'm going to fucking lose it. And he was laughing.
It cut the tension.
And Hack even started laughing. It was pretty funny. But yeah, you're right. You're a phony if you're acting one way and you're not one way. That's
Just be authentic.
Be authentic, yeah.
100%.
Because that's one of the things, like John Stevens, like really, really kind of drilled into me was like maintaining composure. To your point, like if the leader is composed and calm, that trickles down to the rest of them. There's a time to get worked up. Obviously, you're playing sports here, but that was the one thing I took away from John Stevens, and that was like that's his character, right? He gets fired up, but he picks his battles of when he shows it and how he shows it, and then behind closed doors. I mean,
Right.
you be careful, put your helmet back on between periods.
Yeah.
You should be flying, but that was one thing that I appreciated, is because it's so true, and I take that into my parenting. It's like if I'm frazzled and showing a lack of composure, you don't think my kids are going to be like following the leader here, and
something
trickling
happens
down.
at the house and like the electricity goes out and you start freaking out like, oh my god, like the kids are gonna be like, oh my god, this is the worst thing to ever happen. You're like,
Yeah, exactly.
No big deal.
Right.
Let's pump the generator on.
Yeah.
Don't worry. You know, the Uncrustables aren't going to go bad.
Yeah,
You know, all that. You're good to
They're not
go.
allowed to eat those.
Those are off limits anyways.
Not at your house.
No. Oh, man,
man.
that's great.
Yeah.
No, that's totally right on that. You hit the nail on the head with Torch there.